The face-to-face madness. Before we were married, I was introduced to my husband through his cousin in September of 2002. We didn't meet face-to-face. The mutual friend gave us each other's emails and we started corresponding. The emails were more infrequent during the first couple of months. At that time, he was out of the country working, and I was in college in the country. We started slowly, then the emails got more personal, more frequent, and the phone calls started. We both fell in love and started making plans to meet and get married one day. He promised to return in December of 2003, and I was excitedly waiting for him. At this point I was so much in love, I stopped all communication with other men. I had one previous relationship. My husband was in love too, and we were looking forward to getting together. At 22, and he at 25, we were head over heels into the long-distance relationship. At this point, at least to me, the whole point of the relationship was getting together in December 2003, and our conversations were all geared towards that. I was eagerly waiting for him and told my parents and relatives about him and our plans in December. In November, he started hinting that he might not make it, but he was trying. He gave me reasons about workloads. Because he said he was still trying, I took his word for it. In mid-December, he said he was definitely not coming because of his work, and I was completely heartbroken. I was pressing for details, but he would not say. The whole family was asking me what had happened to my boyfriend. We had never met face to face, so there was a lot of ridicule by siblings and friends who thought I was being foolish and gullible. With nowhere else to turn, I phoned the cousin who had introduced us and asked what was going on, if she knew the exact reason why my husband was not coming back. The cousin laughed, told me she had known he would never be able to come several months ago, and advised me to consider seeing other people and taking it one day at a time. She also gave me the exact reason why he could not come: work visa issues in his host country. I can't get into them here, but it's complicated. Knowing the exact reason, I confronted him and he flatly denied it, gave me the same story of general work issue. December and January were a tough, painful month for me. My husband and I continued with our emails and phone calls, but I did not trust anything he said at all, and I felt that he was not coming clean with me. Part of me felt that he had changed his mind about us and was looking for a way out. During this time, I really tried to get him to open up, but he would not. I was in touch with his cousin, who was still laughing and telling me to take it one day at a time and consider seeing other people. All this time, we still haven't met face to face. Around March of 2004, I had a fling with my ex-boyfriend. I still wrote and talked to my husband, although my faith in him was completely gone, but I loved him. I ended the fling and somehow things worked out, and when the husband came back, we got married, November 2004, and had 2 kids. I did not tell him anything about the fling. He always suspected that something had happened and was always asking me if I had anything to confess to. I always lied and said nothing. In 2013, I got tired of the constant badgering and confessed about the fling. My marriage has been on a downward spiral since then. I have never seen the fling since then, and I have been focused and dedicated to my marriage. But my husband badgers me day and night, looks up the fling on the internet. I haven't seen the fling since I ended it. I understand that I betrayed my husband and he feels hurt by this ordeal, but I don't know how to make him happy. I have apologized profusely, but we seem to be going around in circles. I really love my husband and don't want to lose him. The questions keep coming. Sometimes I can't recall exact details from 2004, and he always accuses me of lying. Part of me feels that I am being judged harshly. I had one boyfriend before him, and he has had like 6 girlfriends before me, but I don't care about his past. I don't want to lose him. I was faithfully waiting for him to show up in DEC 2003 as we had agreed. This would never have happened. I was a nervous wreck at that time. He finally returned in October 2004. We got married in Nov 2004. I understand I cheated, should have been honest with him. I really want to make this work and make it up to him. I don't know how. He is hurting and is betrayed, and detailed questions keep coming back. I am willing to go to MC, but he has flatly refused. My past indiscretion has plagued my marriage since confession in 2013. There are many triggers. For instance, because of the constant internet googling of the my husband always knows what he is up to and wants to talk about this all the time, which always ends up with the badgering and torments about the past lies and betrayal. I understand, he is in pain. I am not the person he thought I was. It turns out that the OM has a business relationship with my brother. I don't know how this happened. I was shocked that they even know each other. I never ever introduced the two. I never discussed the OM with my brother, so this now puts a strain in my marriage. This revelation came to me as a result of the internet searches by my husband. In 2015, while visiting my brother's family, my brother was speaking on the phone with They both live thousands of miles away from us. My brother turned to me and said, "Guess what? Nancy is visiting. Nancy, your old friend Ted wants to say hi." I said no thanks, and without many details, I told my brother I wanted no part of his involvement with OM. I did not tell my husband about this at the time. When I later did, he was furious. He asked me for a divorce immediately. I love my husband, I want to save my marriage, but issues of the constantly plague us. I am willing to do anything, but with the many triggers, we are always going round in circles. Otherwise, we had a great marriage, we are compatible in all other ways, financially, emotionally, physically, and we have 2 kids, ages 10 and 9. H and I have been talking about this situation for several years, since the 2013 revelation, to be exact, and more so recently because it seemed like he was ready to pull the plug. No IC or MC has been sought. His feelings have been largely echoed, described by posters here. He said he feels like he's been living with a stranger for close to 13 years. He is upset about my lying and keeping this secret from him. He has been wondering why I did not disclose this years despite the numerous times he asked, and the selfish part of me thought it would damage our marriage, therefore I kept silent, especially because I haven't seen my ex since 2004. He laments that if I told him this on email before we met, he would have also dated other people. That stings. He also said he feels like beating the out of the ex-BF. I asked him why he wasn't really honest about the work visa issues when he didn't come back to the States in 2003. He said I would never have understood. That's true, I didn't really understand the gravity until we got married in 2004 and he detailed it. Apparently, those issues would have taken several months to 2-3 years to resolve, if he wanted to stay in the host country and keep his job and contract. I asked numerous times on email, phone in vain. Was I expected to wait 3 years while he constantly lied that he was coming home in 2 months? Or his returning date is just around the corner, or he could come anytime he wanted to but was just busy with work at the moment. Anyhow, I should have been honest when he disappointed me. For those who were wondering, this was not any custom date online and marry without ever meeting physically or dating physically. We both had very conservative mindsets and are generally risk takers. I was swept off my feet by the emailing. During that time, there was no Skype, no FB, no FaceTime, international calls were super expensive, and I am sure he felt the same too. We both fell in love. He needs constant reassurance that this will not happen again when we go through hard times. We have gone through normal hard times in marriage, but I have never even thought of bailing. He needs to believe that I am still not in love with the ex-BF who happened to be my first, way before I ever knew my H. He needs reassurance that I will not be unfaithful in the marriage. I have to work on the reassurance and building trust with some strategies I have been learning on this site. I hope this will help. At any rate, I am constantly worried that we will start moving in circles again. He with the badgering, questioning, and blaming when something triggers him. I guess things will never be the same again. Neither one of us wants to do. We have had a great life together, amazing kids, great chemistry and compatibility. The main advice I get is to let H yell at you and be angry at you until the day I pass. Okay, but when is enough is enough? Is that spouse going to be yelled at, name-called and fight and argue every time the hurt spouse drags it out of the mud when things were going well until death does them part? The hurt spouse bringing it up constantly doesn't help the healing. Update: I am still doing everything I can to help my husband heal and put everything back on track. It is a painful process for him, especially the deceit, lies. I strive to be a better person now. Some posters were asking what I am doing to heal the husband. We are not going the IC route. He doesn't believe in that. I am basically fixing this by myself. Here is my list. Can someone tell me what else is missing? 1. He has access to all my phone passwords, emails, etc. for home, work. He has always had them, so this is not new. 2. Answering detailed questions, talking. This has been going on for several hours every day, every evening until the wee hours of the morning when we have to catch a little sleep and get ready for work. I try to be honest. Sometimes it's hard to recall exact details like time, day, month because it has been 13 years. This is tricky because it makes everything I say look like a lie. 3. Cut contact with an old friend who knew of the affair. I did this recently. A friend from college who was a friend to the OM. My brother apparently has business dealings with the OM. I am also not speaking with my brother at the moment. I will not speak with my brother until my husband can trust me again. 4. Acknowledging their hurt, your betrayal. I put myself in his shoes and listen when he expresses his feelings. It gets nasty, with bitter name-calling and false accusations. But I don't expect a walk in the park until he can trust me again. 5. Right timeline of affair. I did this, approximating months, days that I was seeing OM. His D-Day was in fall 2013. I messed up by trickle truths and lies at that time. Again, it has been so long since the affair happened in 2004. I am trying to be consistent. But sometimes, when I can't recall exact details, or there are minor inconsistencies, he gets quite upset. I understand that the trust will take forever to rebuild. There are other items like cutting links with OM, STD checks, DNA for kids, broadcast the affair to family, writing no contact letter, etc. that would not apply in our situation given that I haven't seen OM in over 13 years. My husband knows that I have been a faithful wife, have never even looked at another man, so perhaps we can heal. I hope we can heal. Every night until early morning hours. He has numerous detailed questions and it's been taking us long to go through each item. Obviously, it gets nasty sometimes and I shut down, break down or just refuse to answer any more questions. We talk about OM and my deceit day and night. We talk on the phone during the working day as well. We have always had an active physical life. That aspect hasn't changed. He says he needs to keep talking about this in order to heal. I have to support him until he heals. The truth is, we are in this situation today because I am the one that messed up. I am the one that has stolen years of his life by marrying him under false pretenses and not disclosing this information before we got married. I am the one that lied and cheated and hurt my husband's feelings. I am the one that needs to do what it takes to rebuild the broken trust. And it is broken so badly, he is now starting to accuse me of looking at other men in stores, restaurants, train, etc. I know he wouldn't have married me if he knew. He has said so repeatedly when angry, although when he calms down, he says it would not have made a difference. I need to fix this, it's ruining us. Excuse me for the rant, but I am going through a roller coaster of emotions. I've been working through these issues with H, trying to prove myself, and during long sessions that last through the night and even eat into my work during the day. I get it. I stole many years from his life by not being open. He deserved to be with somebody who loves him unconditionally through thick or thin. H confessed in a fit of rage that he slept with another woman, for one night, or maybe more, I am not sure, during our online dating relationship many years ago. My first thought was, he's a hypocrite, but I didn't go there. Initially I thought he was joking, but then he swore on our kids' lives that he wasn't. He then finished the discussion by lamenting that now I know what he feels like, and that he wasn't and isn't desperate. I am not allowed to ask any follow-up questions. I have been raked through the coals, and he continues to do that, but he will not discuss his indiscretion at all. He says he did it because I was up to no good. Okay, it hurts very much thinking about it. I just can't help feeling that he's so hypocritical. I'm also wondering why raise it now. I'm so confused. He won't discuss his at all, but we are still going on and on about mine. 2 years later, about 2 years ago, 2016, on DH's phone, I stumbled upon a text message exchange between my darling husband and his half-brother, arguing about some family issues. His half-brother texted angrily something to darling husband, to the effect that I'm not the one sleeping with other women and hiding it from my wife. The text blew me off, and when I questioned darling husband about what it meant, he said his brother was looking to create trouble in our marriage. In all fairness, the two have had a rocky relationship. So, I believed darling husband and forgot about it. Later, 2017, he was seen at a hotel, or a club, with a woman, he had an explanation, said was having fun with his niece in college and her friends. The niece confirmed this, with a caveat that one of the girls, let's call her Jane, was not really her friend but was rather shady. A few months later, in another argument by text with a different family member, darling husband was again accused of sleeping with other women under the guise of helping them out financially. This was through a text message again, found on DH's phone. Same explanation again. I did not pursue it further since his family has plenty of infighting and can be brutal to each other. However, the alarm bells started going off at this point. Later, around the same time, I encountered some call logs in our joint cell phone statement. Darling husband had been chatting with someone for several hours almost weekly. When I asked, he said it was a female family friend, Jane, needing money, which he promptly wired. He assured me it was that one time and promised he wouldn't do it again. Last week, we had a destination wedding in his hometown for his uncle. There was a strange woman, Jane, looking rather isolated from the guests. Someone blurted out, "Oh, no, she's here, this might get ugly," then immediately clammed shut when they noticed me within earshot. After the wedding, I noticed that the woman lingered on after all guests had left. Darling husband assured me that his family are apparently friends with her family. She's the only one who attended from her family. She ignored darling husband, and he also avoided her like the plague, which was a huge red flag because he's extremely outgoing and was chatting up with all the guests. By this time, I was livid, started putting 2 and 2 together after having spent the whole day reflecting upon everything. I watched the two throughout and had a miserable time at the wedding. At the wedding reception, another of his brothers said, "Why would Jane come here?" To add salt to the injury, Jane followed the family to a private evening party and sat alone in a corner, isolated. DH continued to ignore her the whole time while speaking with everyone else. Later, Jane slipped away unnoticed into the night. That night at our hotel while darling husband was asleep, I found several wire transfer transactions in his email. Dozens of cash transfers to Jane. I woke darling husband up and confronted him. He said he didn't want to upset me, that's why he kept the wires a secret. He said he hasn't been seeing Jane, she's a young girl that has financial problems, and he felt sorry for her. He told me I was cold and didn't have a heart. We argued the whole night and he refused to answer any questions about Jane, sticking with his story that she's in financial trouble and he's helping. I demanded that he calls Jane. At first, he resisted, but I took his phone and dialed. It went to voicemail. He seemed relieved. The following morning there was a text from Jane saying she missed his call. Is everything okay? I feel like his whole family knows about Jane and I'm the only one in the dark. I always felt something was off since 2016 but couldn't put a finger on it. My heart is breaking and I have 2 kids to consider. We are still arguing. Darling husband is sticking to his story and denies that he's sleeping with Jane. I have asked for his financial statements from 2016 to date. He refused. I demanded he calls Jane in my presence. He refused. He refuses a polygraph test too. Instead, I'm the bad person for not trusting him. He's refused to talk about it. Later, I sat darling husband down to ask more questions about everything. He now says that the money was for a business plan that Jane had, a transport business for consignment designer shoes for women. I asked him why I was not included in this business arrangement, but he had no answer. I asked him how much he sent to Jane in total. He gave me a vague number but will not back it up by showing me his financial statements. He even said his niece is on board and knows about this business arrangement. I asked him who else knows. He said just the niece and no one else. I asked him where the incorporation paperwork is, tax ID and the like. He said Jane did not deliver as agreed, and he has been conned of his money. Jane is now a con lady. I sat there, looked at him lying, and mentally planned my next steps. I don't know whether to feel angry or upset anymore, especially since he has a story for everything and I know he's lying and will not take his word for anything. I look at him and wonder if this is the same guy I've been married to for over 14 years. It's surreal. He doesn't want me to call anyone like his niece, Jane, etc. That alone tells me everything I need to know. I have been such a fool for so long. I feel so isolated. How to get the truth? Do you think I should call Jane to get her side of the story? Update: last night, in the wee hours of the morning while DH was asleep, I logged in his phone and found Jane online, and started chatting with her pretending to be him. I said the wife is freaking out and starting to ask questions. Jane sang like a canary, urging him not to say anything to me. Then Jane started reminiscing about their time together, discussed the places they were together, washrooms and hotels, clubs, etc. All the while, Jane was urging him not to disclose anything to me and stick to the shoe business story. I chatted with Jane for an hour, resisting the urge to call her out, curse her out, and tell her she was chatting with the wife. My heart was thumping and it was like an out-of-body experience. I could not believe the gory details about what they did together. We have a vacation home and Jane reminisced how they did each other behind that vacation home and inside it and how it felt good and all that, and how she will keep sneaking and doing him even if she ever got married because they had a special connection. My heart is broken. I am at work now contemplating my next move. Jane did mention that she still loves him and what they have is magical. I, still pretending to be him, asked if she kept any of our pics together because I had to delete everything. Dumb Jane said no problem. I provided her with my own email address, saying it is new and I just opened it. Jane said she would open a new email address as well so they can chat in secret because her fiance likes to snoop. Jane apparently has a fiance. Jane sent their pics together and I have those as well. Jane mentioned by name family members that knew about their affair. It was hard to sit there and continue typing and chatting with her. My scum of a DH slept on, oblivious to what was going on, but I am meeting with an attorney during my lunch break. Jane reminisced about their last time together right before the wedding. This has been going on for over 2 years. I left DH working from home as I planned my next move. I cannot believe it, how stupid and blind I have been. For what it's worth, and since someone asked, we are Americans. They are still in touch. They spoke yesterday while I was at work, revealed by the chat, and I know they will speak again today. Based on the chats, I gathered that the two were freaking out wondering what I knew and how to hide any more info from me. And I have everything and wondering where to store it. What a piece of crap. Some of the details are nasty, Jane describing dirty details of what they did together, all the while cautioning him that it's their special secret and not to disclose anything. Nasty details. I have the pictures too. I am looking for a safe place to store everything. I have everything, screenshots of the chats, pics, etc. DH is blowing up my phone. Like clockwork, after I left for work, he and Jane touched base and discovered that they didn't chat with each other. Well, he is denying everything and asking to put Jane on the phone to admit that she made up all the stories. Good thing, I am not dumb anymore. The pics are of the two together. Disgusting. I played stupid at first, then he started yelling and I hung up on his behind. They are both disgusting, nasty people. Still in shock. He took her to half the hotels and nightclubs in our hometown, and half in the city we frequent when we go to the lake house. The same spots we frequent as a couple. The lake house is where I take my kids for summer, and that's where we always spend Christmas. It is forever tainted. All those places are tainted. Could he not find a new location for his shenanigans? The lawyer is drafting divorce paperwork immediately. It will be a long weekend. It's been a roller coaster of emotions. On getting home Friday after work, husband was all heated up and defensive, begging me to speak with Jane so she denies the affair. I banished him to the basement that night. My family was over for dinner earlier, complicating everything. Later, he came up when everyone was asleep, sneaked into bed beside me and I managed to get a confession from him, confirming everything in my chat with Jane. Disgusting that I had to wear a dirty lingerie and tease him to do this before shoving him off me after he confessed. The full confession destroyed me. I guess a tiny, whiny part of me was still hopeful that this was all a bad mistake. He says Jane was crazy and nasty and he couldn't help himself. He said he wouldn't do it again and asked for a reconciliation. Said he wouldn't consent to a divorce and begged that we work this out. Again, my heart was broken. It's one thing reading the chats from Jane, but to hear those words coming from his mouth nearly killed me. My emotions are all over the place. The next day, he dares to ambush me with Jane on his phone and put her on speaker to apologize. Hearing that whispery, girlish voice squeak, it really isn't a big deal. Just let it go and don't stress yourself. It won't happen again since I have my fiancé and I have moved on, was like a knife plunging and twisting in my back over and over, again and again. She thinks she can move on with her fiancé and live happily ever after, destroying my life. Worst humiliation ever. I went nuclear on their two behinds and completely lost it. Cursed them, told Jane she could have him, and threw him out. I can't find Jane's fiancé yet. She's all over social media, but there's no mention of her boyfriend. I doubt he exists, but will continue to look. Husband later sneaked back in through the basement door and is begging we work this out, using the two kids as bait. Yeah, right. I have blown this up to his family, many of whom knew or suspected the affair, but said nothing. I also talked to Jane's mom, since they are family friends. But right now I cannot find the fiancé, but that can wait. What I cannot do is keep this a secret. Everyone must know what they did to me. On reading Jane's chats carefully and looking at the pictures, I am beginning to comprehend the emotional and psychological damage this has done and trying not to snap because I can barely hold it together. 1. Two kids to consider, 11 and 13. They have noticed the strain at home. The girl is especially very close to her dad. 2. 14 years down the drain. I was 23 when we got married. That's my young life gone with a poof. 3. Front seat view on the details of the affair. Names, places, intimate details. The mind movies are torturous. On closely reading the messages, Jane mentions the time they had a quickie right under my nose outside late at night in our vacation home, when we had a party and all family, friends, and neighbors were there. I remember that day because I retired to bed early with the kids. Later, I remember that H came into bed and we made love, with the stench, bodily fluids of her still on him. This level of callousness, selfishness, and disrespect is unfathomable. 4. The unprotected affair. Jane is counseling him in one of the chats. If she asks about this, say yes, we had protected time. Great job exposing us to health risks like this, hubby. 5. In one of the last messages, Jane is asking when the next hookup is, and saying she will open a new email address for their communications because her fiancé is Snoopy. In other words, this affair would have continued if I didn't find out. Yuck. 6. Last, but not least, all of our favorite locations are tainted now. Our hometown, that's where Jane lives, and half the hotels and clubs in it, our vacation house, our current house, other cities we used to frequent, etc. He took her to all of our favorite places. 7. And the wedding. She has tainted that as well. I recall her smug face sitting there and looking shady, staying out after all the guests had left, following us into a private late-night party of clubbing and dancing, then sneaking out into the night. 8. Oh, and he bonded with Jane and is still in a fog. When I exposed this to families, the phone started going crazy, buzzing. He says to me, you should have kept this a secret and let us deal with it as a couple. Jane is young and I don't want her life ruined or her committing suicide over this. Yeah, right. What about me, the mother of his kids? Where is his concern if I overdosed or slashed my wrists to end my pain? Scumbag. First week after my D-Day, emotionally, I am a wreck but starting to grasp reality gradually. Still unable to sleep at night, on autopilot and trying to function, go to work and be a mother. After blowing this up to his family, the ones who knew or suspected the affair, they are mostly on his side, which is okay, because blood is definitely thicker than water. H is still denying the affair, only that now he has his stooge of a family backing him. When I exposed, I mentioned that I had documentary evidence, the screenshots with Jane, and the pictures she sent of them together. The vile family is siding with dumb Jane, and their narrative when they blow up my phone is that she knew it was me all along and made up the stories. They say that the pics have been photoshopped. Someone has even conjured up alternate pictures of the Jane and H together in a crowd, and with his family to prove how messed up I am. Jane was supposedly their family friend, remember. They are choosing her side over mine. I know I was super naive and trusting before, but there is no going back. I am just surprised the lengths they are going through to make it sound like I am the one who is crazy, the perils of being married to a charming narcissistic. Still waiting on the lawyer to file. He seems to be dragging his feet all of a sudden. H has refused to move out of the house. My comment, do you think this was a revenge affair? Do you condone revenge affairs? Part 2 ending coming today as well. Hit that sub and bell and see you in the final end.